One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's Bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Are you ready for me to pull back the curtain on my promotional strategies? Because today I am giving you basically a full-blown content planning session, all the things behind the scenes, because I am in real time doing this for my podcast. And I thought, you know what? Why don't I just share this with everybody? Because I know that this information could be super helpful. So I'm going to take you behind the scenes and we're going to have a full-blown content planning session, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we? Okay, today's episode is going to have a lot more clicking around than normal because I am literally inside all of my content calendars, all of the things that I use to plan my content, create my content on a regular basis. And I just wanted to forewarn you, if you hear a lot of clicking in the background, that's what's happening. If you hear my mouse, it's because I don't have a mouse pad. Let's talk about this for a second. I had a really ugly mouse pad, and then I just one day decided it was so ugly, I just threw it in the trash. And now I have a mouse. It doesn't bother me because it's usually just me, right? I'm the one that hears it. But I just thought about, you may hear me dragging my mouse all across my desk. So that's what it is. You're going to hear lots of different noises today, but it will all be worth it because I have so many good things to share with you today. So what I have open in front of me is my Asana, because that is how I bring these podcast episodes to y'all. Like I will plan an episode in Asana. I used to do this strictly in a notebook, and then I would just have my notebook in front of me. Y'all know, like I'm famous for having my notebooks all around, and I still do. Actually, I have a notebook right beside me as I'm recording this, but I have gotten a lot more used to doing all of my brain dumps and planning an entire podcast episode in Asana. So I have that open. I also have my Buzzsprout, my YouTube, and a lot of Google Sheets. I have a lot of Google Sheets open, and that's because that's where my content calendar lives. It's where I also keep track of some really important information that we're going to talk about today. So I hope that you're settled in. I hope that you are ready to learn all about my content planning strategy because y'all, I do this on a very regular basis. Like every single week, I'm inside my content calendar. Every single week, if not every day that I'm working, I'm in Asana, keeping track. And because that is how I stay on deadline. Let's just call it a deadline because it's what it is. It's a self-imposed deadline, right? No one is saying you have to hit this certain thing every single week. It's more of me saying, these are the deadlines that I've set for my content and myself. And it's how I'm able to stay so consistent. I've talked about this before, that consistency is one of the values of my company and how I do business. And it's what I live by. It's what I stand for. Like I love being known as being consistent. And so in order to do that, I have to set goals and deadlines around my content. And I do all of that in Asana. And here's like another fun fact behind the scenes. Before the beginning of a month, and typically I'll do this at the very beginning of the year. So I have the whole year ready to go for a content calendar. But at least every single month, I sit down and I create kind of a project plan within Asana. I mean, it's not a brand new plan every single month. It's a running, this is my 2021 content calendar. And I go in and I write up, okay, how many podcast episodes am I creating this month? How many YouTube videos am I committing to creating? Where are my Monday motivation post or Monday mindset or my Tuesday tips? If you're in the Facebook group, you know what I'm talking about. The Plug Your Podcast on Wednesdays, Thursdays is story time, and Friday are usually action items. So I have all of this content. I have my weekly email. Hang on, let me list out all the pieces of content I create. Then we have the potty report episodes. Like I have this on a regular basis inside Asana. And this is how I know for the entire month of September, these are all the things that I committed to creating. This is my secret sauce, okay? This is the reason why I'm able to be consistent with everything that I create. It's because I am planning to succeed with my content creation. And then on top of that, I have a few other one-off things. Some of them are things that I have to do every month, and some of them I will do maybe in September, but not in October. And then I'll do them in January, but not in March. Like it just kind of depends on what's going on. And we're going to talk about promotions and launches and all that in a second. But if you've seen my content calendar on my YouTube videos, I'm actually going to link to these in the show notes. There's a lot. I've talked about content a lot. There's a reason. There's a reason why we talk about content so much around here. It's because that is what we're creating. We are creating content on a regular basis, whether you're posting a brand new podcast episode every week, you're just able to do it once a month, like whatever consistency looks like for you, we are creating content. Maybe you're thinking about content, you're planning content, you're batching content, you're promoting your content. Like we are constantly talking about content around here. And I thought, you know what? I am literally doing this inside all of the facets of the content that I create on a weekly basis that I thought, well, why don't I just share it with you? So everything we talk about today, anything that I reference are going to be in the show notes. So crystalprofit.com/episode 293 is where you're going to find everything. But we are going to go
kind of on a deep dive into what I'm doing behind the scenes for my next content planning sprint for Q4 of 2021, because that's when I'm recording this. I'm recording this right before we go into the last quarter of the year. And I'm actually doing a really big workshop on planning every quarter of the year later on in December of this year. So stay tuned for that workshop. It's going to be all about podcast planning 101, how to be strategic. But today's episode is kind of a little glimpse into what I do on a regular basis to show you how you can be successful, not overwhelmed, not freak out every week and say, what am I supposed to talk about? No, we're not doing that anymore. Okay. We're not being reactive to our content. We're going to be proactive. So the first question that I want to answer is, where do you find your content ideas? Right? Because this is the question that people often ask me, is like, well, how do you keep a running list of your ideas? Well, I'm going to share some of the specific things that I'm doing, because it changes from, content planning session to planning session. But I am specifically doing these things right now. Like I did them earlier this week, and I'm still doing them right now because I'm not finished. I don't consider my content planning session over until I have an entire quarter planned. And a quarter of the year is 3 months, right? So I want to have the next 3 months of content planned. This does not mean that it's all recorded. It does not mean it's all like SEO, like keyworded, and it's like perfect, that the title that I put on this is going to be the title of the thing, or that I have all the guests lined up. It doesn't mean any of that. It simply means I have an idea. It's a plan. It is me putting on a scratch pad in pencil that this is what I'm going to be doing. We're not writing anything in permanent marker that we can't change later. Okay, I wanted to make that very clear, that when you're doing this and you're sitting down for a strategic planning session, just give yourself the grace to say, this is what I'm thinking about doing. It may or may not work out, but at least I have a plan. Okay, that's really how I approach content planning, which is why I use so many Google Sheets. Okay, let's be really honest, because it's easy to change things in Google Sheets. So the first thing that I did, and there's a very specific reason why I did this first, I needed an updated version or database, if you will, for my SEO and keywords. Now, I'm going to link in the show notes to previous podcast episodes that we've done. I did one with Ryan Cote, like where we talked about ranking on Google and what that looks like. I'm going to link to another one about blogging with Chelsea Clark. That was a fantastic episode, just about like how website, keyword research, all that stuff really works. And then I have another older episode that I created all about SEO for podcast and what that looks like. All of these are still very relevant episodes. And if you're like, I don't really know anything about SEO, what are you talking about? It is search engine optimization. If you don't know what it means, go listen to those episodes and then come back to this one, because I'm not going deep into what it is, how you use it, how you can rank on Google, but it is something that is very top of mind for me, especially because I needed an overhaul and an updated version of my top keywords. I don't do keyword research every single week when I create a piece of content. I don't even do it every single month or every single quarter. I usually do a really big deep dive every 6 to 12 months. And I hadn't done this in a while simply because with YouTube, I do use YouTube. There's a tool called TubeBuddy. I'm going to link to in the show notes. But when I do my YouTube, there's a few built-in aspects of TubeBuddy that helps with the keyword research and making sure you're putting the right tags and you're labeling, like you're titling it. Like YouTube is a different story. And I also have Yoast on my WordPress website, Yoast. I hope I spelled that right. Yeah, Yoast. My spelling skills are definitely, I would not win the spelling bee. Well, let's just say that. I heavily rely on autocorrect, but Yoast is a tool that I use for my SEO and keywords on my website. So I highly recommend using tools to your advantage. And then I use Keywords Everywhere as my main SEO tool. And I've used that one, gosh, I want to say
being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
maybe going on 3 years now, I've been using Keywords Everywhere. Back when it was totally free, now it's like, I think I paid $10 every quarter or something. It's not expensive. It's definitely not expensive, but it's worth it. It is worth it, worth every dime, because it helps you understand what people are searching for. So like I said, I needed to do a deep dive on keywords, and I'm moving my mouse around here. So what I did is there were 3 specific keywords that I wanted to know more about, because I hadn't done this, like I said, for several months. I hadn't looked like a deep dive into what are people searching for right now. And there is a sweet spot of what kind of keywords you want to rank for. So here's an example. There was the 3 words. I used podcast, then I used solo podcast, and then I used interview podcast. So let's say someone's listening to this and your keywords might be for fitness. So maybe you have like postpartum workout, or working out over 50, or workouts for working moms. I don't know. I'm just totally making this up. But you want to have at least 3 keywords that you're going to do a deep dive on. And they can be similar, like everything that would be under the umbrella of your topic, like mine, podcast, solo podcast, interview podcast. Because what happens is when you go and you use a keyword research tool, y'all, I got thousands upon thousands of results for all 3 of these terms. But I know my little bitty website that gets moderate traffic is not going to be the top ranking website for podcast, just the word podcast. So I go into it with the mentality of I'm not trying to rank for the word podcast, but as I scroll down, I look at all the data. So it'll tell you the search volume. It'll tell you how likely are you to rank. It'll tell you the different trends. This goes back over a year. So I can see from September 2020 to September 2021, has any of these keywords increased in popularity? And if it has, then I have to ask myself, okay, why? What's really going on? But what I've done is I took the information. So in any of these keyword research tools, usually it'll spit out a whole bunch of information, a whole bunch of data, like what I just said, the search volume, the competition, the trends. And then I exported that to a Google Sheet to where I could see everything. I can sort it. I could, if I'm okay, it's ridiculous to think that I'm going to rank for the term podcasting, which has over 300,000 monthly views or monthly searches. 300,000. Y'all, this is why I said it's not likely I'm going to rank for just the word. If somebody just types podcast in Google, I'm not going to rank at the top because there's so many people searching for it, and there's so many different, I guess you could just call them algorithms involved, and my podcast website does not rank at the top of those, but there are some other keywords where I would be able to rank. like the term solo podcast or podcast topics or talking about podcast content or podcast artwork. Like the more specific you get, and this is where we get into more of the keywording, the more likely it is that I could rank for those things. And I know this because people have told me, I found you on Google when I searched for, and they will tell me like one particular thing, and we'll talk about your numbers here in a second, but one topic in general that I know that I will show up for in Google is explicit podcast content. And that is because I've created a podcast episode and a YouTube video about explicit podcast content. And that is just so happens to be something that not a lot of other people who do what I do are creating content around that. So you want to find keywords that you know you can rank for, things that you know that people are already out there looking for, and there's not a ton of competition. Now, I have to tell you, SEO and keyword research, like this is the long game. Okay, you're not going to put one post out on the internet and then all of a sudden jump to the top page, the top spot on Google because of one piece of content that you put out there. But over time, SEO has worked in my favor for my podcast website, for my YouTube channel, and even my podcast just on Buzzsprout. Like even if I didn't have a podcast website independent from what I'm provided on Buzzsprout, some of those podcasts will rank in Google. It just depends on what people are searching for. So that was kind of the deep dive on SEO and keyword research. But anytime I start feeling like my content needs like a creative, like zhuzhing up or a creative makeover, this is what I do first. I go to, do I need to refresh my SEO and my keywords, and what is something that people are searching for right now that not a lot of people are talking about? Okay, so that is the 10,000 foot view of SEO and keywords. But if you want to learn more about it, I'm going to link to some other episodes that will be great for you. So that's number one. Number two, because the original question is, where do you find your content ideas? Number one, SEO and keyword research. Number two, by looking at my numbers. So what do I mean by this? This is simply looking at the content that I'm already creating to see, well, what is performing best? Like I told you earlier, I have Buzzsprout open. I have YouTube open. And what I can do is I can go into my stats feature, and in Buzzsprout, you just go to your main Buzzsprout account, go up to the right and click on the stats. And there are several different ways that you can look at your information. I have a few YouTube videos on looking at your Buzzsprout stats, like what do they mean? Which ones are the most important? Which ones should I look at? But what I like to do whenever I'm specifically looking for new content ideas, I like to go all the way over to all time. So I'm in my stats, I click on all time, and then I go down to my top episodes. And I look at, oh, it's funny. We talked about explicit content. Y'all, this is number 1, 2, 3. This is my 4th most popular episode across my whole podcast is, what is explicit content for a podcast? What does it mean? That is the title. There's a reason why it is the most popular. It's not because people are finding my podcast and going back and they're just enamored with this one topic. It's because this specific episode ranks in Google, because not a lot of people have used the term explicit content for a podcast in their podcast titles. Okay, so this is super important, and it makes me think, okay, well, what are other spin-off pieces of content that I could create about explicit content? So there's my content ideas that I can use for my content calendar in planning out the next few months. So look at the last 6 to 12 months of your podcast episodes. If you have a YouTube channel, like what is performing the best? And yes, you can look at overall for your podcast, but for YouTube, I like to look at the last 6 to 12 months simply because YouTube is more of the evergreen, right? So people may have found a video that you published about 12 months ago that's still popular today. It just depends on your topic. So there is a specific video I'm thinking of right now that went semi-viral. I say that in quotes. I have my air quotes up. And it was about, I did a video all about Apple Podcasts and the changes that were happening when all that went down in April. And that one was something that I won't be able to replicate that because now there's a lot of other content out there. Like it was one of those, like, you got to get on it. You got to create it. It was hot news. It was a hot topic. But I'm not going to try to create content that's just about Apple Podcast. For one, that doesn't sound fun to me. It really doesn't. But two, I just don't think it's going to get the same kind of traction unless something else new and trendy like comes up. So I am looking at trends, but I really like to look at the historical data of what's going on my own platforms and what's being created. So look at your podcast episodes, look at your YouTube, look at your social post to see which ones have gotten more traction than others. So I know that there's a lot of y'all I've seen experimenting with Instagram Reels and with TikTok. Well, are there specific ones that have really taken off? And then are there carousel post that you've done on Instagram or maybe a soundbite or something that you shared that you got so much engagement, right? People are commenting, people are liking it, people are sharing it. Look at your social post and ask, why is this being, something that people are really interested in? Why are people engaging with this piece of content? And then say, how can I replicate this? How can I create something similar to this in the future? So use that information as you plan out your content calendar. And then the last place I want you to go look at your numbers is in your email service provider. So I use ConvertKit, and I will often go in and kind of look at my last 5 to 6 emails to see which ones are getting more opens or which ones are getting more clicks. And I like to ask, well, why was it? Was I more honest in this email? Was I being funnier? Was I sharing like a bunch of tips and strategies right in the email? Or was it just a really good story? Because that's going to tell me that people are engaging with that type of content. And I said that was the last one, but I actually have one more that I did not put on my list. But look at your Google Analytics. If you do have a website that's independent from your podcast host, like you have your own WordPress or Squarespace website, look at your analytics to see what are your most popular pages. Or you could even look at your downloads of your free resources, right? Do you have a free lead magnet that you have that is performing better than others? Like, don't leave any stones unturned, y'all. You've got to look at your numbers to see what is performing the best and then ask the question, why? Why is it performing? And if you don't know, you need to ask your audience. Okay, and we're going to talk about engagement and all that stuff here in a second. But all right, let's go into the original question is, where do you find your content ideas, right? The first one was SEO and keyword research. The second way is looking at your numbers, all the data that you have. And then the third is my promotional calendar. So this is what I do. Whenever I look at quarter 4 or any quarter of the year, I say, okay, what's going on in the month of October, November, December, right? Because those are the months in quarter 4. So specifically for what I'm doing right now, I have in October, there's 2 big things that are happening. The first one is Podcaster's Kit, which is an affiliate promotion that I've done. This will be my second year. Is it my second or my third year? It's a fairly new thing that they only do once a year. If you learned about me from BC Stack or you're familiar with BC Stack, then you know it's very similar to that, except for it's just for podcasters. So this is an affiliate promotion that's happening in October. So I have to ask myself, okay, what pieces of content do I want to create around this affiliate promotion? Am I going to create podcast episodes? Am I going to create YouTube videos? Am I going to write emails? And when I know when it's happening and when I need to promote, I throw those into my content calendar. Now, let's go back to what we talked about at the top of this episode. We don't have to have all the titles, all the exact topics figured out. I will literally go in and just write the word Podcaster's Kit on my podcast calendar or Podcaster's Kit on my YouTube calendar. That way I know, I don't know what I'm creating exactly for that day. I just know it needs to revolve around this promotion because that's when it's happening. So you got to be looking at your calendars. You got to have your promotional calendar set up like right next to you, and then your content calendar to really know that everything is going to be aligned with when a launch is actually happening. So this is going to be really fun. Like, just stay tuned for that, because this year for Podcaster's Kit, I'm creating a workshop that's all about self-sponsored ads and how to create your own. Like, we're doing a deep dive into self-sponsored ads. So that's going to be so much fun. I love talking about self-sponsored ads almost as much as I love talking about content creation. Like, it's one of those things. I love it. I love it. So the other thing we have going on in October is I'm speaking at She Podcasts Live, and I'm really excited. It's going to be so much fun. I already know I'm going to walk away from this conference with lots of content ideas and possibly some podcast interviews from some of the ladies I'm really excited to meet in person and have coffee and conversations and dinner dates. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So this is my first She Podcast Live, and it's going to be so much fun. I'm going to put a link in the show notes for you to grab tickets. Again, go to crystalprofit.com/episode 293. I'm not an affiliate for them or anything. I'm just really excited to speak on stage, and I would love to see you in Arizona in October. It's going to be so much fun. Okay, November. I am doing some live workshops in November. And this isn't necessarily going to all be about promotion, but I will need to talk about these live workshops as they're coming up. So knowing that they're coming up in November, I'll probably set aside either some dynamic content space or some emails or something promoting these live workshops that I'm doing at the end of October so that people really know about them in November. Okay. So this is another way I want you to look at your promotional calendar is how can I promote what's coming up in the next few months by backtracking into the content I'm creating a few weeks before. Y'all, this is not rocket scientist. I always say that wrong. This is not rocket science. There we go. I'm not a rocket scientist, obviously, but this is how you backtrack into a successful launch. Okay? This is like, I told y'all, I'm giving y'all some secrets today. This is my secret sauce. And people ask me, well, how are you ready for that launch? And how do you make it look so easy? And you just always seem like you have your content aligned. This is what I do. This is literally what I do. I know that my live workshops are coming up in November. So in October, I will look at my calendar and say, okay, I need to promote it in these 2 episodes, or I need to create these 2 YouTube videos about my workshops because then I can promote it. I can write an email about it, all the things. Okay? Very basic, very important. All right. So the last month in December, this is usually the time when people are winding down for the holidays, and that's totally fine. I love checking out. December is actually a really, really busy month for our family. We have my birthday, we have my son's birthday, we have my niece's birthday, we have my nephew's birthday, and then on top of that, we have all of the traditional holiday parties and Christmas and just shopping, like all the things. December is always a crazy, crazy month for me. But I know that coming up in January, that will be right around the corner with some bright-eyed and bushy-tailed podcasters getting ready to launch. And I'm actually launching a brand new program in January. So I'm going to be doing some light promotion for that in December to get people ready to purchase this brand new program in January. Do you hear what I'm saying? Look, it's September. When I'm recording this is in September, but I'm talking about a program that I'm launching in January and I'm going to start promoting it in December. This is how you stay on top of your content. This is how you prepare for things that are coming down the road. You have to start thinking about them a lot sooner. And again, I don't have a solid plan. I don't have the exact dates that I'm launching this yet. I don't have all of the inside information that I need to promote everything. But I'm going to be looking at everything over the next few weeks to really see what I can do. Like, how can I bake this in? How can I organically talk about this where it doesn't feel awkward and weird, just like I've done in today's episode? Did y'all hear what I was talking about? I'm talking about a promotion that's coming up next month. I'm talking about me speaking at She Podcast Live. I'm talking about some live workshops. I'm talking about a brand new program. Like, y'all, I have done a lot of mentioning of little things in today's episode, but I'm not selling anything. I'm not selling anything right now that it's going to be like pertinent for you to know right at this moment. I am just telling you, this is how I know what's coming up and how my content is all going to be aligned. So on the outside, it looks like, oh, she just kind of threw everything together and it all magically happened to land in the right spot. Nope. I've been thinking about this, honestly, since August. So I love planning. I love seeing things ahead. And you can only do this with practice and knowing what to look for. And so in all the things that we talked about for October, November, December, I'm also looking at how can I repurpose some of this content, right? Because in December, I'm going to want to take some time off for my family. And so I'm looking at, okay, can I use some of the information from my Podcasters Kit promotion? Or can I use some of my talk from She Podcast Live to repurpose it and use it in December? Or maybe some of my live workshops. Like, I'm already looking at the content that I'm creating. How can I repurpose it? How can I use this to really make sure that I have a content calendar that is taking me from now, September 2021, into January 2022? That sounds really weird to say, but it's the truth. Okay, that's the goal here. And then the last thing that I want to mention is, where do you find your content ideas, right? We've talked about SEO keyword. Number 2 is looking at your numbers. Number 3 is my promotional calendar. And then number 4 is very basic, but it's the ultimate way for you to make sure you're providing valuable content. It's your Facebook group answers. It's the questions you get asked on a regular basis. It's honestly just paying attention to what people are asking you. Like, so much of my content planning, like on the surface, it looks like, oh, like you're doing all this extra work for all these things. But to be really honest, I'm just listening to people. I'm engaging with people on a regular basis. I do weekly Facebook, YouTube, like I go live in all the places. So shameless plug. I do these every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central. So if you've never joined us for one of my live trainings, like live hangouts, you need to come hang out with us. But so much of it is me asking questions and answering questions in these live streams. Whether it's just saying, hey, let's talk podcast. That's actually what I call it. It's let's talk podcast. Bring your podcast ideas. Bring your podcast questions. I will answer people's very specific questions. And then I'll kind of zoom out and say, how could I apply this to the bigger population of podcasters in our group? Or how can I do like a spin-off piece of content? That's actually something I've said a few times here. I have a YouTube video about spin-off pieces of content that I want you to go check out, because I think it's really helpful when you do have a really successful piece of content or a great post that goes viral or a really good conversation. Ask yourself, how can I create a piece of spin-off content? But you just got to pay attention, and you have to have a system in place. And I've shared my system before, but I have a YouTube video I'm going to link to. I use Google Sheets and Asana. Both of these are free. I'm not spending hundreds of dollars on my content calendars. You could do this in a notebook. You could literally do this in a paper planner that you have, but you have to start planning your content if you want it to feel more effortless, if you want it to feel like creating your content isn't as much of a strain on you. I get people that come to me, they're overwhelmed with their content. And then when I ask them about a plan, they're just like, what plan? I'm supposed to have a plan? Yes. Because it makes it easier. It doesn't have to be a perfect plan. Y'all, you should see how sloppily these Google Sheets are thrown together whenever, like, they don't look all fancy and beautiful. Actually, I need my husband. He's like the king of spreadsheets, and I need him to like beautify these and make like pivot tables and do all the fancy things. I don't even know how to do all that stuff. I literally will export into a Google Sheet and I do some highlighting and some sorting and I hide a bunch of cells. Sometimes I delete them, but it's very simple. And the reason is because I don't like to be complicated. I like to keep things simple because it helps me execute more effectively every single week. So that's all I have for y'all today. Y'all, this was a really fun episode. I love talking about content creation. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. And I'm really looking forward to Q4 of 2021. Like I said, I've already been thinking about this and planning this for a while, but I thought I would share with you the behind the scenes of what it looks like to be prepared and to actually have a content calendar and have a plan for how you're going to promote your products, your promotions, or just freaking create content that doesn't stress you out. At the end of the day, if that's your only goal, that's a good goal to have. Okay, because I'm all about podcasters that actually enjoy podcasting and look at it as something fun that they really enjoy doing. But like I said, go to crystalprofit.com/episode 293. But that is all I have for you today. Go check out all the SEO, the keyword tools, all the things. It's going to be linked in the show notes. Go check all of those out. Go check them out. I'm going to link to the video I did about my content calendar so you can actually see what this looks like. And I want you to take a screenshot and share your content calendar. Like, show me what you're doing. Show me what you're creating. Show me what you are planning, but share with me what you're working on because I would love to see it. But that's all I have for you today. So as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere.
Hey, Profit Podcast listeners, thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.